Welcome to the show.
Great to be here.
So cool that you just like down the road, you just like pop up. This is nice. Yeah. Let's talk about what the Democrats are dealing with these days. The Mueller report. It came out. Attorney General Barr says that it proves no collusion, but the Democrats are saying you want to see the full report. Do you believe that there's something else in the report that will further suspicions about Trump, or is it just about being open with the public?
Well, I think first and foremost, transparency is important in terms of openness as it relates to our government. 420 members of the House of Representatives voted to release the full report. 0 voted against it. More than 80% of the American people have said we should see the report. The president himself has said we should see the report. So transparency in a democracy is critical.
Right.
And it's not clear to me what the president is hiding in terms of the failure to release it to date. We'll see what happens on April 2nd in terms of what the Attorney General does.
Right. Well, I guess the argument from the Attorney General's side has been, we have to redact the report because there are certain, sensitive pieces of information that should not be out, and they're worried about people leaking that information. Do you think there's validity to those claims?
Well, that's a reasonable statement, but we'll see how far it goes. At the end of the day, if there is grand jury material, there is a basis in law to withhold some of it, but there's also a rule that says if there is substantial public interest, the presumption of secrecy can be overcome.
Oh, wow.
As it relates to grand jury material. 17 different intelligence agencies concluded that Russia attacked our democracy and interfered with our election in order to artificially try and place Donald Trump at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Right.
Seems to me that that's a compelling government interest to figure out what happened, why did it happen, and how do we prevent it from happening again.
Let me ask you this, to that point, where the Democrats are now versus where you're trying to go. There's been polling that has come out to suggest that most Americans do not care about Donald Trump and the Russians. Most Americans care about paying off student loans. Most Americans care about medical bills, about health care. Most Americans care about safety in their homes. Is the messaging of the Democrats going into 2020 going to be just Trump and Russia, or is there a plan of what to do if you assume office?
Well, we're going to continue to focus on our For the People agenda. When we were communicating with the American people in advance of the midterm elections, we didn't talk about Russia. We didn't talk about impeachment. We didn't talk about collusion or obstruction of justice.
Right.
We talked about lowering health care costs, protecting people with pre-existing conditions, strengthening the Affordable Care Act, enacting a real infrastructure plan, and cleaning up corruption in the era of Citizens United so we can get unregulated money out of politics, and in the era of voter suppression once and for all. That's the conversation that we had with the American people.
Right.
And so now that we're in the majority, that's what we're going to focus on. But we are a separate and co-equal branch of government. We don't work for Donald Trump. We work for the American people. And so we do have a constitutional responsibility to serve as a check and balance on an out-of-control executive branch. Now, we will try to find common ground with the Trump administration to get things done on behalf of the American people. House Democrats will never bend the knee to Donald J. Trump, the first of his name, because this is a democracy. It's not a monarchy.
I like how you... like you called, that's dope. Donald J. Trump, the first of his name, sounds like a Game of Thrones, like, that's pretty cool. He's probably going to take it. First of my name. Yeah. It's interesting that you say we will work together with Trump. Many would feel that that is just rhetoric, but you yourself personally have been working with the Trump administration, Jared Kushner specifically, on criminal justice reform. Now, many people have felt like Kushner and his role in the administration is one that's murky at best. But from your experience, it seems like there's a genuine intent to work on changing the way America treats people who have been incarcerated.
Well, that's right. And politics does make for strange bedfellows. And, we have a mass incarceration problem in the United States of America. When the failed war on drugs first started in 1971, there were less than 350,000 people incarcerated in America. Today, we have 2.2 million. Disproportionately Black and Latino, approximately half nonviolent drug offenders. As you know, Trevor, we incarcerate more people in the United States of America than any other country in the world.
Right.
It's a stain on our democratic society. And so we concluded, working with Kushner, who expressed an authentic interest in this issue last year, that Democrats and Republicans should work together to strike a blow against mass incarceration.
Right.
And we were able to negotiate the First Step Act to help currently incarcerated individuals successfully transition back into society, make sure they had the skills, the training, the education, the substance abuse treatment, the mental health counseling to successfully become productive citizens, reduce recidivism, save taxpayer dollars, and we also rolled back some of the draconian failed war on drug sentencing schemes that have devastated communities. And so it was the first step, but it was a meaningful step. It was a coalition of the unusual suspects, the left, the right, Democrats and Republicans, progressives and conservatives, the ACLU and the Koch brothers. And on December 21st of last year, Donald Trump signed the bill into law.
That's actually impressive, I'm not gonna lie. The bigger question some people may have is, you have found a way to work with the Trump administration in furthering criminal justice reform. The question is, will the Democrats be able to work with themselves? You know, we've seen recently cracks in the party, you know, factions formed, far left versus more center-leaning Democrats, Ocasio-Cortez versus more establishment leaders. Bernie Sanders right now stepping away from most of the party. You know, people saying, we want to change the Affordable Care Act. We want to improve coverage. We want to expand coverage. We want to protect people who have pre-existing conditions. Bernie saying, no, that's not enough. I want Medicare for all. Is there going to be a consensus in the Democratic Party, or do you see yourselves basically eating each other alive before you get to go up against Trump?
Well, there are 239 members of the House Democratic Caucus, 235 voting members. And so what we're going to try to do is focus on what unites us. And we know that there's a principle that unites us as Democrats, and that is that America is the wealthiest country in the history of the world. And in that context, we believe that every single American should have access to high quality, affordable health care, period, full stop. Health care is not a privilege, it's a right. That's our foundation. And so we want to begin by marching toward universal access to coverage.
Right.
We think the first thing we can do, and we know there are 235 votes to do it, is to drive down the high cost of life-saving prescription drugs, because no one in America should ever have to choose between putting food on the table, clothing on their back, paying the rent, or getting access to the medicine that they deserve.
Right. It's going to be a long journey. You seem like you're focused, you're in the game, you're ready to do it. I have one question before I let you go. It seems like a lot of the more high-profile Democrats right now are coming from a few specific places in and around New York. It seems like the boroughs are representing. Do you think there's something about the boroughs that's giving you guys an edge? You know, it's yourself, as Ocasio-Cortez, we're seeing this. Is there something we don't know?
Well, I have love for the Boogie Down Bronx, but we keep it real in Brooklyn as well.
Thank you so much for coming to the show. I appreciate you. Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, everybody.